Welcome to the new episode of the Myles High Podcast. This is Myles Munroe Jr., your host. And as you know, the goal and vision of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. So we got a great episode for you today. I have a very special guest. You know, last week I spoke about finding the right partner, and you know, my wife and I had some conversations after recording that pod, and I figured, you know, it would be great to, you know, bring that conversation to the pod. So this is a follow up to last week's pod, to finding a partner. I wanted to bring my wife on, my wife Sherice, on the pod today so that we can discuss relationships. So first of all, wifey, baby, thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
Happy
to
be coming back
here on the couch.
Finally on the couch.
Not finally. It's
for the second time. She's always in the background. You would normally hear her voice, but you know, now for those of you watching, you would normally hear her voice, just hear her voice, but you're able to see her now. But regardless of, you know, where you guys are tuning in, whether it's on our visual platforms or the audio platforms, you know, you're accustomed to hearing my wife on the pod, but she's an official guest for this particular pod. So thank you for joining, babe.
You're welcome.
How are you?
I'm good. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, am I the right partner? This question.
See, this stems from our conversation from the last pod, but I think so. I think so. But I think we'll divulge into that as we have this conversation. Okay. Because I have the same question for you. Okay. Am I the right partner?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I wanted to review some the tips that I gave in the last episode, right? The last pod. So just gonna, you know, briefly go down the tips. If you haven't had a chance to catch that pod, you just go to our page and, you know, just listen to the Finding Your Partner podcast, and you know, that's a preview to what we are going to be discussing today. So I gave some tips last week on, you know, how best to find the right partner, or things you can do to find the right partner. And I just want to quickly run down those tips, right? So the first was to have a strong spiritual foundation, or develop a strong spiritual foundation. I think that's very important. I mean, I think that goes without saying, to be quite honest. The second one was to check the checklist. You know, we all have this checklist that we put together, and sometimes it's unrealistic. And that's one of the main reasons why I say to check the checklist, and just keep an open mind, because you never know, you know, who that special someone could be for you. And your checklist may be preventing you from connecting with that person. The third thing was to be all one, right? So to be alone, like when you're alone, when you're single, but to work on yourself, develop yourself so that you can become a whole person, so that you can, you know, determine your values, determine your wants in life, determine your goals, and really be on that purpose journey. And I think once we're on that purpose journey and really understand why we're here and what we can do and where we're going, I think that's the time when the best person for us is going to come around. The fourth thing was to, you know, create a friendship, or try to create a friendship. I know that could be hard based on the dynamics, on how you met the person and how the relationship started. But if you can, you know, try to cultivate a friendship first, I think it makes it easier to build on that relationship. The fifth thing was to think with the right head. For my fellas out there, and, you know, women as well, let's use the brain that we have, ladies and gentlemen. In relationship decisions, in every decision that we have, right? Let's not think with the wrong head. Let's not make emotional decisions. Let's try to be as rational and as logical as possible. And then the last thing was the 80-20. It's probably 80% of someone that you're going to love and like and want to be with for the rest of your life. And then there's that 20% that you're just like, I don't know. I don't know if I could do this with this person. I don't know if I could take these things, right? But don't let the 20% determine the the choice that you make in throwing away, the positive side, the 80% that's there, because that 80% could really be the determining factor in your success, right? And I think the person that we choose to spend the rest of our life with really helps us in our personal success, in our professional success, and then we do the same for them, right? And I think this 80-20 rule is very important when it comes to that. So, babe, those are my tips. So the first thing I want to kind of speak about is like which of those is maybe not most important to you, but which one like stood out or stands out to you?
Well, all 6 of them are really important, but I think in our case, what I think for me stood out the most was the friendship aspect, because we've always been friends. Everybody knows our story. We've been friends since high school. And when you are dating, dating is already an awkward situation. So the less awkward it is, the better. And I think for us, because we knew each other so well, we knew our likes, we know our wants, our dreams and goals and stuff like that, it was easy for us to just genuinely flow into a relationship. And then it wasn't as awkward because you don't have to kind of catch up. You don't have to find out what this person likes, what this person dislikes, and then you're comfortable. And I think for me, that was the most important thing, being comfortable. When you're new to a relationship, there are certain things that you don't want to do. You're walking on eggshells. But for us, we were already in a position where we can crack jokes and, the other one not get offended. But I mean, of course, going from a friendship to a relationship, there still is challenges, but it's so much easier when you are truly friends and you truly value that person as a friend. So I think for me, that was very, very, very important. Yeah. And it made it easier. Sure.
But obviously everyone won't be able to start from, that position of being a friend, right? And we're not saying that you should or that you have to. We're just saying that it's a great place to start, just because of the ease and of the transition into a possible relationship. This person, you've hung around them or been around them, in a platonic manner. And transitioning that now into maybe a more romantic relationship, or just maybe a little bit more serious in like courting or whatever it is that you're transitioning into. I think being friends just makes that transition easier, because like Sherice says, that process of like trying to get comfortable and trying to know someone, like when y'all go out to eat, for example, and let's say you eat something that
are you playing cute while you eat?
Doesn't sit well with you. Not just playing cute, but like you eat something that ain't sitting well, and then you got the bubbly guts, right? A friend, you could say, yo, I gotta go, I coming back. But someone you just meeting, right? You might have to like
your insides explode.
You got a whole lot of it. You gotta be like, all right, I can't embarrass myself. So you gotta figure it out, right? And I'm just cracking a joke in all honesty, but that's the reality of the situation, right?
The level of comfort you would have if you guys were friends.
As friends. So that's all we're saying. So
some people might be comfortable.
You're right.
So when you gotta go.
First date, so it'd be like, anyway, I gotta go to the bathroom. But I think, I unfortunately have way too much pride to be like, hey, I go into the bathroom on the first date where I just meet someone.
It's a healthy part of life.
And you know what? It is a part of life, right? And that's always one thing I like never understood, like why we're so embarrassed, not ashamed, but more so embarrassed to like go use the bathroom. And I just think like, especially our generation, like the way when we grew up, like they just was like, oh, you got to do number 2. Or
blow the bathroom up.
Oh man. Okay, so babe, I have a question. So tell me what stood out about me, or maybe like one thing or a few things that stood out that you thought, I don't know if this is going to work for me.
Well, we have talked about this in great lengths. So I think the one thing that surprised me, or was like, oh, I don't know if I could deal with this, was your militant nature, your discipline. You have a level of discipline that is unreal. And I was like, I don't know if I could live under Sergeant Munroe. Like,
you're running out now.
Listen, D knows. If you say, I want this done today, if it's not done today, you know. So I think that was one of the most shocking things about you, to be honest.
So my discipline.
Yeah.
And I guess to counter that, I think my realization was like the exact opposite. Like Sherice is very undisciplined.
Yes.
Right.
Very
and
chaotic.
everything is like sporadic and like unorganized in a sense. I wouldn't say she's undisciplined. She's very unorganized though. So like, you know, for me, like I'm a process person and I have everything kind of structured, and I love routines, right? I love to, you know, have just a life routine, not necessarily routine and like my work, but I like to have a structure with like my days and like the things that I do and when I do them. Sherice isn't anything like that. And because of that disorganization, like I honestly was like, boy, can I be with this? Can I be with someone who is this unorganized or this disorganized? But that's something that, you know, we talked through and talked with each other about, you know,
and I think
quite
it balanced out as well because you're so disciplined. I was able to watch you and kind of feed off of you and kind of try to do better.
Yes.
And I think with you, you kind of loosened up a little bit. You know, you kind of.
I wasn't as
uptight and
as militant. You know, a good example of that was so when me and Sherice, Sherice and I grew up under like different religions. I mentioned this in the last part as well. She grew up Anglican, and I grew up non-denominational, like kingdom based or kingdom foundation. So the way that we do things on a spiritual level was entirely different, right? One of those was fasting. When it comes to fasting, you know, we fast in our church and my family and stuff. You know, we did a full fast. I guess you could have done, you know, any type of fast that you wanted to do, the Daniel fast, fruit and salad, like whatever it was. But like primarily our fast of choice was a full fast, a no food fast. Sherice, in her denomination, in her Anglican religion,
we celebrated Lent.
Right,
so it was 40 days.
It was 40 days in a portion of the year, and
you choose what you're going to give up essentially. So
right.
in it, essentially, it was like the same thing, but it wasn't with food.
Right.
I mean, it could be with meat, alcohol,
TV,
anything that was a
media,
vice to you.
Right. Anything that you felt that you couldn't do without, like you would give that up for like the period of Lent. So like when we first started dating, we got into a relationship. Like at the beginning of every year, I fast. I do a 2 to 3 week fast each year, and I remember the first time I fasted. I fasted for 2 weeks. I think the first time I fasted when you and I were together, and Sherice. It confused her. She was like, "So you're not going to eat like anything? You're just going to..." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm, just drinking water. I'm drinking cranberry juice, drinking apple juice, organic apple juice, and herbal teas."
Well, I was confused because I'm like, "Is this healthy? Like, you need food."
Right? So, so it was weird to her, right? And it was something that it was a shock to her, right? But I think that discipline that I had, right, and I because I've done that every year since, maybe 2 years or 3 years after that initial experience she had with me fasting, she was like, "Okay, I want to try this," right? And I usually, like I say, fast for 2 to 3 weeks, and I was like, "Yo, I don't think you should like go head on for 2 to 3 weeks. I think you should like gradually grow into it, because even for me." Like getting to the point where I'm able to fast for 2 to 3 weeks took some time, right? I remember when I first started fasting as a teenager, like 2 days was rough, like 3 days was rough. And then getting to 5 days, like you thought you was gonna die, so it was something that I had to learn to do and like develop a maturity to do. But nonetheless, like getting back to the point, like Sherice was like, "Okay, I want to fast with you this time," and she decided to do a 2-day fast, and I love that, and I didn't force her to do it or even ask her to do it. Like she took it upon herself to like want to do it, and I think it was rough. It was rough for those 2 days.
2 days, like drinking tea.
Those 2 days, but she did it though, and and we've been fasting together since. Like she, again, she wouldn't go as long as me, but the fact that she is still, setting the time aside to fast, I think it just shows the impact and influence that we could have on each other, in our relationship and in a marriage. And I think it's one of the things where I think my discipline, like she said, really helped her to gain a bit more organization and a bit more discipline. Yeah. And then, her unorganization and maybe not so discipline, unorganization, her disorganization, helped me just to kind of, relax a bit and just be like,
it's not that serious.
Yeah, it's okay if things are a bit chaotic at times. And I think that's just something that, we've been able to bounce off each other.
There's beauty in chaos.
Some would say. Some would say. But yeah, and I, this, so just talking about her and I's history or our development or growth in our spirituality, with her coming from an Anglican background and me coming from a Kingdom background, it just shows like the histories that come together, like when you decide to get married. The good book says, our life book, what I call the life book, it tells us to marry to the woman of your youth, right? And the reason why, that doesn't work out all the time, right? But the reason why that recommendation is made is because when we're young, we don't have as much history as, when we're 40 years old or 50 years old or 60 years old or 35 years old or whatever that older age is, right? You reach these age levels and you've lived a lot of life, right? You've developed a lot of habits. You've developed into a certain type of individual. And when you come together with someone, like, that's where you bring these histories together. And sometimes, like, the history that I know, the habits that I have, the things that I like to do, once it clashes with, someone else, it could cause some conflict, right? And it could cause some uneasiness. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of marriages don't work out, right? Because, in the courting phases or in the dating phases, like, we don't normally ask sometimes the right questions. Like, we aren't as intentional about, hey, I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page. So let's talk about building a family. Let's talk about where we're going to live. Let's talk about how we're going to raise our kids. Let's talk about the things that we're going to do within our relationship to build our relationship on a continuous level. And I think those are things that Sherice and I did, right? And it comes back to the 80-20 rule, right? Just understanding that, this history, my history, that I brought into the relationship and then eventually into our marriage, and the history that she brought, like, I had to figure out, okay, I understand that this is who you are as an individual, and this is who I am as an individual, and here's what we may need to work on to, make ourselves a unit. And
well, I also think that when people get into dating relationships, before you even get to marriage, you have these expectations based on your lived experiences, like how you grew up. Did you grow up in a 2-parent household like yourself? Did you grow up in a nuclear family like I did with my extended, my cousins and my aunts? So all of that goes into who you are. And I think that's an important question when you're also dating, because you might know, well, I want someone who has the same values as me. And then I think we don't take that into consideration, which is very important, because how you grew up affects how you're going to date, live, right? And how you live. And is this someone that does this person possess the values that I possess? And if they don't, can I look past that? Is that a part of my 80% or is that part of my 20%? Is this a non-negotiable for me to grow up with someone who knows what a marriage looks like, because I want to fashion my marriage after my parents? Or is it something that I can be open to? So all of that is important when you're dating, not when you get married, because then you're already in too deep.
Yeah, and I think all of that comes through communication.
Yes.
Right? Communication is key. I think it's the most important aspect of any relationship, right? And on making sure that, first of all, we both are on the same communication plane, right? We're like, our definitions are the same when we use certain terminology or phrases.
Well, if you study communications, you'll know that communication is different for everyone. You can me and you can hear the same thing, but I can understand something different. You can understand something different.
I know it.
And then, of course, there's noise. So what is affecting the way that I'm understanding what you're saying? So even though you can say I have great communication skills, are you a good communicator? Are you a good listener? Are you a good interpreter? So I think that's really important. And I think for us, we're both really good communicators. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of slip-ups, and I mean, we know the right concepts, but sometimes it's like,
Well, so like one thing I learned about Sherice, and I think this is most women, right? Like if I tell Sherice something, she's not gonna hear the words that I say. She's gonna feel the words that I say. So the way that she hears me is how is what I am saying, how does it make her feel? Because
it depends on the tone.
But I'm not even talking about just the tone, right? I'm literally talking about, like, I would tell you something, right? And then you would say it back to me, and I'd be like, I didn't say that though. I didn't use those words. Like, those are not the words that I use.
That's
like we have that conversation all the time, right? And I'm like, but I did not use those words, and I would repeat to her what I said, and then she'd be like, well, that's what I think you said. It'd just be like, well, that's how I internalize it. And initially that used to like cause some friction in our relationship, but it took me like really understanding, okay, so I understand now how she communicates. So I have to maybe like explain myself or say what I want to say a few times. Like she said, we've learned to communicate with each other, right? I know her habits when it comes to communication. I know the ways that she communicates, the good things and the bad things about how she communicates and about how I communicate. And I think that has made it very easy for us to have conversations, difficult conversations, random conversations, easy conversations. I think because we were intentional about our communication. And actually I think that happened because she and I like decided to do premarital counseling even before we got engaged. Like we mentioned this on...
Well, no, I disagree. I think we've always been good communicators because we've always been friends.
Right, but
in my opinion.
But what I'm saying is I think we understood how each other communicates from going through that process.
Well, I will also disagree because I think your dad's teachings and learning from your dad was more important.
So I could give you all a trick, right? A little. This is for both men and women, right? When you're in a relationship and you want to give your partner information that is good for both of you, but for you guys individually. Like one of the ways you can do that is just to play the audio or the video out loud. Like I learned that, like my dad taught me that, to be honest. I don't know, I can't remember if he and I had a direct conversation about it or if he said it in something that he was talking about or whatever, but he was like, if you want and he was talking about kids, like us as his kids. Like what he would do is just play whatever it is that he wanted us to receive, right? And subconsciously, like we may not even be conscious of like what's going on, but subconsciously we're retaining that information. And like as you consistently do that, like you'll be surprised how much of the information you'll be able to retain. So I took that nugget that I remembered, and I have to play a lot of our resources with the work that I do. And I just decided to sometimes just play it out loud. And like I would notice Sherice, like subconsciously even, right? Like when my dad says like these phrases that hit home like pretty often, and it would come to a point where like he would start the phrase, and before he finishes it on the audio or video that is playing, like she would finish it. And in my mind, I'd be like, yeah, there you go. You got it. You getting it, right? And I'm using that to say like that allowed her to like understand the principles that I've learned that I use like in my life, and not forcing it on her and telling her, yo, this is the way that we need to go, but allowing her to see the truth for herself, to be like, okay, this makes sense, right? I can see the value in this information, and I want to internalize that information. So that coupled with the premarital counseling that we did, and again, we did that even before we got engaged, right? Because that was a personal decision for me, because I really wanted her and I to be on the same page, like her to know, like this is how I want to go into a marriage, and I wanted to know how she wanted to go into a marriage, and just, you know, make sure that we agree on maybe not everything, but the majority of things prior to even getting engaged. And I think that that premarital counseling like allowed us to really learn and understand, maybe more so me than her though, because I think the information, like, even though I may have heard this information before or know this information, being there with her, I think I was just listening with different ears, or maybe because I was a bit more older and matured. But
maybe because you're the one who had to ask the question.
I mean, okay, fair enough. But
no, I mean, I was very hesitant. I did not want to do it, like I said in the last podcast, but I think it was a really good experience for both of us.
I know you would like it though, because you love to learn. Because I like old stuff. No, right? But you love to learn. You love to learn. Like Sherice is always learning. Like, but you could ask her like the most random thing, and she probably is going to know the answer. And I'm always like, yo, why do you even know about this? Like, why is this something that you research? But I knew that she loved to learn, and I knew that even though she might have been hesitant, the ability to, you know, gain more information and learn something, I knew would have attracted her to saying yes into us doing this premarital course. On
the last podcast, I was going through the comments, and a lot of people, they like that tip to go to marital counseling before even getting engaged. And I think it's actually beneficial, because there's a lot that you have to, even for relationships in the class, that you learn.
No, I wouldn't recommend
not taking everyone.
You take everyone you're in a relationship with to this course, right? And I wouldn't say you should force someone to go to the course. It should be a mutually, I think it should be something that you both want, and something that you both like aspire to do. But it is, I think that's probably one of the best things that Sherice and I have done, like prior to getting married, prior to even getting engaged, like doing this course.
I mean, like before you're in a situation, you look at people going through counseling and therapy, even if they're in good spaces, and you're like, well, what you doing that for? But it's just so enriching on your relationship, and you're not even in, like, personally, there are things that you personally can use in your day-to-day life that is just, I think it's a great thing.
And just as individuals, where we should never stop learning, I think even in a marriage, like, you should always want to learn, right? And so, like, there are like maybe some marriage courses that Sherice and I are going to do in the future, or marriage seminars, or like,
or
you know,
a retreat.
Marriage retreat. Do all these things.
Plan one.
That's true. We did talk about that, but do all these things that adds fire to, or add logs to the fire of our marriage, to ensure that we're continuing to be considerate about each other and each other's needs and wants and desires, not just individually, but also in the marriage as well.
And then one thing that we always do in our relationship is we don't wait for the problems to come. Like I told him, like, every season, we know it's hurricane season, we prepare, we put up our hurricane-proof windows, you know, you get your batteries, you get your flashlights, you get your generator prep for hurricane season. So in a marriage, you want to prep for whatever problems you might have coming, and by consistently communicating, by asking each other, is there anything that I can do to better myself in this marriage and better myself overall? You know, what is it that I can improve upon?
Yeah. And you know, I think this course also allowed us to learn more about each other, right? This premarital course that we did. But prior to going to this course, I think, you know, both of us had this as some, you know, there's this topic of like love languages, and like how each person expresses love and receives love, right? And I think prior to going to this premarital course, Sherice and I were kind of like guessing or assuming what each other's love language was, right? Like,
well, I don't even think we were doing that. I think we were just going by, well, I think he'd like this, or I think she would like this, or I think it was so essentially it was about what you wanted that person to like or appreciate.
Sure.
And I think the love languages really hit it home for us. It's not about what you want. It's what they want.
Especially, and that was a lesson that I think Sherice needed to learn, at least the way that I like to receive love, right? I think for her,
well, it was both of us.
yeah, but I mean, you know, like what you thought my love language was way different than what it actually is. Like once we discovered what it was.
What you thought my love language was totally different.
It wasn't that far off.
It was.
Okay, it was far off.
It was far off.
Actually, you know what?
I save you some money.
We found the form that we used to fill out, right? And
yes.
you if you want to do this, like you can just Google the 5 love languages, and there's
5lovelanguages.com.
There's a 30 questionnaire, 30 questions that you answer, and you use those questions to determine like what your love language is. And the key is to be honest when you're answering the questions, right? And it'll. I think this is pretty accurate.
It is
based on like what our love language is and like how we receive the love from each other, right? Mm-hmm. So again, you could go online, fivelovelanguages.com, and you can take these. You could do these 30 questions, so you can find out what your personal love language is, and for those of you who are in a relationship, you can get your significant other to take it as well, so that you both can understand each other's love languages, right? So for Sherice and I, what they do is, right, so the 5 love languages are acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, and physical touch, right? And what this questionnaire does is it lists them in the priority that they fall in line for you, right? So each of us has certain levels of these as a part of our love languages, but there are some that are way more stronger than others. So for me, I'll give you my top 2. My number 1 for me was acts of service, and the second for me was words of affirmation. Actually, I'll give you my top 3 because each of them were 1 point off, right? So acts of service was 1, words of affirmation was 2, and quality time was 3. And I'll let Sherice read.
Well, I only have top 2 because the rest were really low. So the top 1 for me was quality time, and the second was words of affirmation, and the one that you thought that I was received 0 points. So
and that was crazy, right? Because I thought, I mean, as most women, right, you would assume that they love gifts, right? And
I mean, I like gifts, but I guess I don't value gifts on the level.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you like gifts as much as you think.
No,
you do.
Because you did really
like I
good
realized that
acts
now.
of service, leaving gifts in my car and my trunk, and it was sweet. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Right,
like go about my day,
that's a gift. Okay. Anyway, what's next?
Anyway, you could sit on the couch with me.
Right, and so what I didn't realize was like quality time was way more important. And one thing we both realized was, I guess, this perception of like what quality time is, right? And like, because from a male perspective, like you think quality time is like sitting on the couch, cuddling, and like touching each other, and like holding hands, walking around, and staring at each other's eyes, like doing some mushy stuff, right?
The made for TV.
Yeah, like
things.
what TV shows us. But like quality time, especially for Sherice and I, could actually be like us just being in the same house. Mm-hmm. Like we don't even have to be on the same floor. We don't have to be within the same room. Like it's just knowing that, we're under the same roof. And like that's quality time. And as absurd or as weird as that may sound, like that's how she and I view quality time. And obviously in addition to like us traveling together, us like going on dates and stuff, like those are things that we consistently do. But spending quality time with Sherice could be us maybe even being in the same room and not even saying a word to each other, like not sitting next to each other. Like she could be on one side of the couch, I could be on the other side. But the fact that we're there, whether we're watching a movie or watching a game, or I'm watching a game, she's on her phone, or she's watching a movie, I'm on my phone, like whatever it is, that's quality time for us. And I think like that varies based on, the couples that are going through that process. But like really understanding that, and like learning that and then seeing how she and I related with each other, like it started to make sense. Like it really started to make sense where, quality time is important for you. Like you do appreciate, like even I recognize, like I always thought it weird, like I would be in the kitchen cooking and Sherice would just like gravitate towards the kitchen, right? And either she is like sitting there. You don't think it's
because I'm always hungry?
No, I think I honestly think like that's a level of QT that you love.
Yeah, it is.
And you know, she would sit somewhere like around the counter and we like just have a conversation about like just random stuff. And she doesn't do it all the time, but you know, there are times that she does do it, and I realize now like, okay, that's just a level of quality time that she loves. So like just understanding that about her, like I could appreciate now like her wanting to like just be in the vicinity, right? And us be in the vicinity of each other. And that's helped me in like understanding what my what her love language was. And I honestly didn't even realize that my love language was acts of service.
And it does take some time when you find out what your love language is to apply it, because there's still, of course, you're still going to want to do what you want to do for that person. So it was a learning curve for me because I love to buy you things, but
the wrong things.
It was more so like
Sherice is the type of person. Sherice is the type of person to buy me something that she wants, right? And be like, you have to like this because I like this for you, so you must like this. And like she would buy me gifts and I'd be like, why you buy this though? Like I don't even,
because I wanted to buy you something.
Like, I don't even
made me feel good, but it was about me.
And then when I don't use it, like she's get upset, and I'm like, but I never asked you to buy. Like this wasn't something that was on my list for you to buy me or whatever. So like with that, like I try to tell Sherice like pay attention to my likes and not just like in a broad aspect, right? Like, you know, if I like sneakers, I'm a sneaker lover, right? I'm a sneakerhead. You can't just buy me any sneaker, right? You have to buy sneakers that I like. Like Sherice bought me some Reeboks one time, but I was like, these ain't cute. These ain't even cool. And she get mad, like, so I was happy for the gift, right? Because it wasn't something that she asked me if I wanted. It was something that
and it was an extra gift.
Sure, but it was a gift nonetheless. And you know, the thought was great, right? But it wasn't like I didn't like that type of sneaker, so. When I didn't wear it, and I felt like it was just like losing value just sitting in my closet. So I gave it away. I gave it to one of my cousins, right? And she wasn't upset, but she was like, why are you giving the shoes away that I buy you? And I was like, because I don't wear them. Right? And I was like, this is a lesson for you to like, if you're going to buy me some sneakers, either ask me the sneakers that I want or like really pay attention to the brand and the style of sneakers that I like. And I think that goes for all of us, right?
Well, I've gotten better at it.
Yeah, she's gotten super better at it because she asks me now. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. But I think just paying attention to what each other likes, right? And like having conversation, like I'll have a random conversation like with Sherice about, do you like this? Or what do you think about this? And like, just, you know, just she would, like, to her it would seem like a random conversation I'm having, but for me it's like me gaining information on like ideas of the things that, you know, she could like that I could possibly get as a gift at some point. But being intentional about like learning the love language, because like I said, I didn't even know, I didn't realize my love language was acts of service. But after I found it out, it made so much sense, right? Because I don't care for gifts, I don't care for QT to be honest, but like doing something for me, like I truly appreciate that. And you know, when Sherice does that, like it does affect me a different way than anything else.
Even words of affirmation.
Yeah, I think for both of us.
Because I didn't think you didn't think that was your love language, because you know, I guess men are. You guys feel a way about when you get compliments, and it's
no, like, I think it's just me.
Maybe it's just you. I would compliment you. I would say something to you, and you'd be like, well, like you'd be really weird about it, and you wouldn't know how to receive it. And it's like until we did this, you're like, oh, I guess that's what it
does
is.
do something for me, right? Yeah. So you know, this is something that we learned going through our pre-marital course or class, and again, if you're able to. If you can do it even before you get engaged, I think this will cause you to develop an even stronger bond with that special someone, because you learn so much about each other. I think there is some other stuff that we learned that you wanted to share about communication, right?
So, we always reference the Bible as being
The life book.
And you can go to it for any of your problems. And so I got this handout in marital classes, and this was 15 biblical principles for good communication in marriage by Sabra Penley. I'm not going to list all of them, but I wanted to list 4 of them that I think was really, really good. And so the first one is, when problems arise, acknowledge that you are part of the problem. And you can go to Proverbs 26, verse 20, Proverbs chapter 20, verse 6. And the scripture is, many a man claims to have unfailing love, but a faithful man who can find. And then the second one is, be willing to change, be part of the solution. And the accompanying scripture is John chapter 5, verse 6. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? So, of course, you have to be a part of the solution. Number 3, be responsible for your own words, actions, and reactions. Don't justify them by blaming them on your spouse. And that is a big one.
That definitely is.
The scripture, Galatians chapter 6, verse 4-5. Each one should test his own actions. Then he can take pride in himself without comparing himself to somebody else. Else for each one shall carry his own load. And the last one, for another big one, do not keep bringing up old arguments or wrongs. And that's Corinthians 1, chapter 13, verse 5. Love keeps no record of wrongs.
And that,
so,
like we say all the time, like everything that you would need in life is in the life book, right?
Yes.
And I think this is a good testament to that. If you want to read the rest, like I said, you could go to it's the 15 biblical principles of
good communication in marriage by Sabra
Penley, Penley, Penley.
I think it's a book, perhaps. I'm not
Yeah,
too
it could
sure.
be a book, but it's great information, and this is information, and even like that information is some stuff that Sherice and I go through continuously in our relationship, and we continue to remind each other of, hey, don't forget, like this is one of those communication things that we discussed that we need to work on or continually work on, right? Not to forget. Hopefully this conversation has just been able to teach you guys some things, not just about us and our relationship, but some things that you can take and apply to your own relationships, right? To better them and to build stronger relationships. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention before we leave, right? So, actually, let's talk about how do we keep our marriage happy.
Okay.
I think one of the things we do is we've decided, like, we're intentional about never to stop dating each other. And once kids come along, I'm pretty sure like that's going to get difficult. But I think as long as she and I are on the same page to never stop dating, and we set time aside to date and to make sure we're enjoying each other's company. And
it can be even simple things like we enjoy each other's company so much that we don't have to leave the house. We can lay on the couch, watch TV, like we laugh. I send him memes and wait for him to look at them in his phone. Like we just always ensure that we are keeping each other at the top of our minds.
We play games, right? We play Uno, we play
Uno Champion.
Okay. But do whatever it is that you need to do to ensure that you both are continuing to stay happy in the relationship. Because there's one saying, or I guess it's a myth that I want to discuss, and that's the saying where we hear all the time, happy wife, happy life, right? I absolutely hate that saying, because there's no way that the focus in any marriage should just be on one person's happiness, right? I think it does a disservice to the men in the marriage or in the relationship, just to be considerate about their wife's happiness. I think everyone's happiness is important. My happiness is just as important as Sherice's happiness, and I don't think I could depend on Sherice for my happiness, and neither she for her happiness. I think we need to ensure that we are individually happy, and then ensuring each other is happy, and continuing to be happy in the relationship. Sherice and I we were at a restaurant one day, and So Sherice and I are the type of people like we don't need like to have conversations all the time, right? So
just be silent.
Sometimes when you see us, and we actually didn't realize this until we were with some friends, and they pointed it out to us, right? Because
they thought we were
like upset with each other because we weren't saying anything, but we were like in each other's company, and they were like, "Are you guys okay?" So again, we were at this restaurant, and our waiter, who was serving us, we were at the table. We had gotten our food. We were eating, but we weren't saying anything to each other, right? We were just kind of eating and like looking around and not saying much. Didn't really, we didn't even. It's never a thought to us, right? It's just like we understand like this is just who we are and what we do. Our waitress came up to us and I guess she like looked a bit puzzled, right? And she was like, "Are you guys happy?" Right? And she asked, it's such an odd question to be asked that it threw Sherice and I, right? And we were like, "Are we happy?" He was like, "Yeah, we happy. We're happy. Of course we're happy." But we've taken that and internalized that in our relationship, right? And we took that one funny moment where someone looked at us and it may have appeared that we weren't happy. So she felt the need to make sure and ask, like, "Are you guys happy?" And that's what we do now. So, even if it's in joking, Sherice and I would randomly just kind of ask each other, like, "Sherice, are you happy? Are you happy?" And it kind of reminds us to ensure that we are continuing to be considerate about each other's happiness, but also ensuring that we are happy ourselves. And I think that's most important. So for all you people out there that are continuing to say and believe, happy wife, happy life, like, let me tell y'all something. Y'all got to be happy. Continue to be happy. Stay happy. Ensure that you're happy. And in your happiness, I'm sure that happiness will spread to the persons that you love, your wife, your kids, and it'll make the entire family, I think, a stronger bond. All right? Yeah. So focusing on everyone's happiness, including your own, is important. All right?
I agree.
Okay, anything else you wanted to share, babe?
Well, I'm always a motivator of not comparing your relationship to other people. So we might be sitting here and you might think, "Oh, I want a relationship like that. They seem so together." Everyone goes through problems. Everyone goes through something, and it's up to you how you're going to fix it, how you're going to keep that glue, bonded between you both. And so live the marriage you want to live, not the marriage of someone else,
Bars. All right. Nah, that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, babe, thank you for joining me on this part. Well, you're always here, but thank you for actually being a guest. Yeah, I appreciate it. So before you leave, as you know, we have a new tradition on the pod. Every guest that comes on, I want to ask them this final question. And that question is, how do you define success?
Success for me is happiness in all areas of my life. Family life, marriage, career. Once I'm happy, I think I am truly successful in anything that I do, or I am a successful person once I'm happy.
Awesome.
So I'm happy. Happiness. Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Are you happy?
Thank you, my love. That's great. That's great. All right, so we've reached the portion of the pod where I leave with you a milestone, right? And this milestone is pertaining to marriage and relationships, right? I wanted to kind of bring everything home. And the milestone for today is actually a quote from my dad, right? And it says, "Marriage is a school of learning. Keep learning." I think as long as we could keep learning the foundation of relationships and marriages, I think it's only... the only possibility is for us to continue to grow and strengthen those relationships. Sherice and I are committed to continuing to learn each other, continuing to learn ourselves, continuing to learn about our marriage. And once kids come along, we want to continue to learn even about raising and rearing kids, right? And we want to make sure that we're both on the same page and have the best interests of everyone involved, right? Her, myself, and the kids as well. So marriage is a school of learning. Keep learning. That's the milestone for you guys today. So that brings us to the end of this pod. I want to thank you guys for joining us. As you know, the goal and vision of this pod is to continue to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right? Until next time, you guys be blessed.